Well, I'm joined now by Chris Leeson, Managing Director and Partner at Morgan McKinley. Chris, thank you for joining us. If I can start with a bit of good news. Your figures show that in financial firms there was about 5% growth last month. Where's that coming from?
That's correct. I think this stems from the start of 2010, to be honest. We've seen fairly consistent growth, particularly in the first 6 months of 2010. That was on the back of a significant decline for 18 months or so. Things have levelled off slightly since the second half of this year. But I think when you look at in terms of hiring, confidence from financial services, it's still fairly consistent in terms of its confidence and its outlook. We do expect, however, for the remainder of this year for things to tail off slightly, and the reason for that is seasonality, time it takes to hire somebody into the organisation now, and also we're coming to that period where bonuses are back, and we're looking at January and February, and because of that, people are a little bit cautious about moving at this time of year.
Now, as the austerity measures that we saw introduced by George Osborne back in October start to cut in, do you think you're going to actually see them bite and actually see a slowdown?
I think you need to, for us, we've assessed this over a long period of time. We had 8 years of fantastic growth between 2000 and 2008. Then the market continually declined for 2 years, and right the way throughout 2010 it's been consistent growth of quarter on quarter 5 to 6%, and it's hard at the moment to have real visibility of what's going to happen next year. In a buoyant market we could accurately predict in terms of hiring requirements what industries would say to us in terms of 6 months into the future. Right now it's very cautious optimism, where we can only really forecast maybe 1 month in advance.
Now, anecdotally, people feel that they're more likely to get a short-term job, perhaps a project to do some restructuring, that kind of thing. Are you seeing evidence that there is more, there's more growth in that sector than maybe long-term hires?
Yeah. If you looked at the people that were employed in Q3, I think that went up in the UK by over 250,000, but a high percentage of that number were part-time or temporary skilled workers. And there is a significant demand from all of our clients across all sectors for more of a flexible workforce. So people that can add value to an organisation, who are very skilled at what they do, but again, in many respects, it signifies the cautious concern from hirers that they don't want to fill these vacancies on a permanent basis because they have got no ways to predict what the future is going to be. So absolutely, there's a significant demand for flexible workers.
It doesn't bode very well for George Osborne's plans that when people leave the public sector, they will be scooped up by the private sector and employed long term. Do you see any evidence of that at the moment?
Absolutely none whatsoever at this stage. The outlook in terms of from industry and also for financial services is one that they remain optimistic going into 2011, and they are geared up to have a more successful and a more profitable year than this year. But in terms of taking on the additional burden or the workload from the public sector, absolutely not.
Right. And just before we go, what about salaries? Because if young people, if students, I appreciate that they're probably not your client base, but if students are coming in and saying, look, we'll do it for less, does that overall drive salaries down?
Potentially it does. I mean, we haven't seen any significant impact there. I saw the piece on the graduate recruitment, and there are signs from a lot of our clients now that they are gearing up to hire graduates going into 2011, which is a great sign. That hasn't been the case for the last 2 or 3 years, and that bodes for more clients thinking more long-term about their hiring strategy.
OK. Chris Leeson, thank you very much indeed for joining us.